When Frances Haugen blew the whistle, everything changed. The former Facebook product manager was so repulsed by the company's morals, she said she had to leave. But she took with her a ton of confidential private company documents. She leaked them to the Wall Street Journal, and soon all the world could see what went on behind closed doors at Facebook. It was shocking. You've probably heard about the most explosive revelations, like Instagram knows it hurts teen girls' body image. Facebook knows about the social harm that goes on from bullying to human trafficking. Frances Haugen said she shared the documents because she wants Facebook to be better. Facebook already knows how much it hurts its users. By exposing its lack of action, Frances has hoped that Facebook will finally fix all of its problems. Now, Mark Weinstein isn't so sure. He also went to the Wall Street Journal to talk about Facebook. But unlike Frances Haugen, Mark didn't have any documents to share. Instead, he had a pretty strong argument. Facebook is an advertising and marketing company just masquerading as a social media platform. And Mark should know, Mark is the CEO of MeWe. It's an ad-free platform that is competing directly with Facebook. He says that Facebook is a monopoly that gets rid of competition and that he has the stories to prove it. He even introduced me to a term I've never really seen or heard much before. It's surveillance capitalism. It's the greatest socioeconomic experiment in human history, Mark says. Everything we do is monetized from morning to night. He says we need a resolution to reclaim our privacy. And he's right. Facebook is a textbook of surveillance capitalism run amok. And in this episode of Kim Komando Explains, now, even if you don't have a Facebook account, you're actually still part of the story. Mark and I are doing a deep dive into Facebook's role in our lives. You're not going to believe what you're about to hear. When you're on Facebook, it's unconscionable what they are doing. So stay right where you are. Hey, welcome to Kim Komando Explains. Joining me now is Mark Weinstein. He's the CEO of MeWe.com. It's an ad-free social platform that is trying to compete with Facebook. Now, Mark, before we get into what exactly MeWe is and what you were thinking to take on Facebook, I read this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago, and it's titled, I Changed My Mind, Facebook is a Monopoly, which I definitely want to get into. But how would you define, I think it's a phrase that you actually used, surveillance capitalism?
Wow. Not only have I used and defined that, I have a TED Talk about that. So thank you for asking. Because surveillance capitalism is really a distortion of what capitalism is intended to be. Let's start with the premise of capitalism, Kim. The premise of capitalism is, serving and delighting your customer, and then they will be your customer, and your loyal, fan for a lifetime. Surveillance capitalism, which is what Facebook practices, so let's cut to the chase and talk about companies like Facebook,
right?
Is a style of capitalism where you're actually surveilling your purported customer. In this case, Facebook tracks, monitors, spies on, collects data, aggregates data, and targets everything about their users. So Facebook knows, as Yael Eisenstadt said, the former CIA operative who worked for Facebook, said, Facebook knows more about you than the CIA does. That is surveillance capitalism, and that is destructive. It's wrong. It means that they manipulate our purchases, our opinions, our votes. They interfere with democracy. They interfere with our emotions. This is very, very bad for human beings.
So let's take it apart just a little bit, because I don't know if people fully have a grasp about how much Facebook is really tracking. I mean, because you talked about our likes and our dislikes and our opinions and what we purchase and how we purchase it. So let's just start at the beginning. How would you say that Facebook is being disruptive as far as things that we purchase?
Well, let's start with a new premise about Facebook, which is actually the truth about Facebook. Facebook is a marketing and advertising company masquerading as a social network. So as a marketing and advertising company, because the politicians, the marketers, and the advertisers are their customers, those are their paying customers, and they pay to target Facebook's billions of users and to manipulate those users to take an action that's in favor of purchase, a vote, et cetera, whatever action that the marketer, advertiser, politician is paying Facebook for. So it starts right there with Facebook aggregates a data packet. And I think there was a reporter, I believe it was from The Guardian, who one day said, Facebook, how much data do you have on me? And then they had to give it to him. And I think it was like 60,000 pages, something. Crazy.
You're right. I remember seeing that going, I don't even know if I have 60,000 pages I would know about myself, or I don't even know if I have 60 different traits. I've heard a number, and I don't know if you've heard this number too, Mark, about how many different data points that Facebook might have about us. The number that I heard was like 26,000 different data points. And so if you were to envision that you would have a duplicate of yourself, say an avatar in the cloud in some big database, and it is a full replication of you, so to speak, with these 25 or 26,000 different data points. Is that a number that you've heard?
That's a number that I've heard. And then when you think about it, because Facebook is so sophisticated, they create what's called a data packet. And so they take all of that. And again, back to Yael, who says they know more about you than you know about yourself. They can predict your behavior, and they can predict how to influence your behavior, because Facebook also very much wants to make money. So they're always attempting to influence your emotions and your purchase decisions in their interest. And can you imagine, with that much data that is now aggregated, sorted, analyzed, and organized by the world's best data scientists, the world's best psychologists and psychiatrists, because Facebook hires them all? It's scary what Facebook can do to people and how it can manipulate. And Facebook's audience, remember, is half the world's population.
What is it that, depending upon which stat that you read, that 30% or could be 60%, depends on the day, where the Americans are saying that this is their primary news source. Okay, this is what they're learning, what happens in the world, in between the psycho family member who wants to talk about politics to somebody else who's taking a test to see what kind of bird they would have been in prehistoric times. I mean, it's just crazy to me.
Well, exactly. When you think about Facebook's control, when we talk about, my op-ed that, I've changed my mind that Facebook is a monopoly. One of the reasons I changed my mind, because over the last 2 years, they've taken control of the news media. They launched Facebook News. They're paying the media to produce content and to distribute it on their platform. Then Facebook's algorithms decide on whether to boost that content or to bury that content. So Facebook decides what news every individual sees, and Facebook customizes that in a very manipulative and destructive way. It's really, it's so dangerous, it's almost unspeakable.
Because you're so entrenched in this, could you walk us through, say, a story and how Facebook would decide whether to promote it or not?
Well, I think listen, I'm just going to, take a personal story, or, take a look at Snap, for example, Snap's Project Voldemort, where Snap, studied all the ways that Facebook was interfering with Snap, copying them, muting conversations on their platform. The same thing with MeWe. Facebook, we have screenshots of people being put in Facebook jail. They actually, and the posts, and you can see the posts. The posts are just someone saying, hey, let's go over to MeWe. And that becomes content that's flagged that Facebook purposely doesn't allow that person to share with their friends. And then, you take it to the broader, the whistleblower, but this was already documented years earlier, that Facebook targets teens. Yes. Suicidal teens, this whole idea of manipulating purchase decisions and opinions and emotions of young people. So they know if a kid is suicidal, what do? Then they serve them products. It's all product. What can we sell that kid because they're suicidal? It's not, well, we better help this child, help these hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of 13-year-olds who have body image issues and suicidal thoughts because of Facebook and Instagram. No, it's all about how can we market products to them? How can we sell them based on their fears about their body images? And it's so Terrible.
It's diabolical. I mean, a moral dilemma at Facebook, I've always said, it's like they see a post from, say, a terrorist, and they have to decide whether or not they should flag that post or start showing this person ads for timers, right? I mean, it's like, what do we do? It's a moral dilemma.
Right, for sure. And it's when you look at that kind of the elite, the whistleblower also told us about there's a double standard. So if that terrorist happens to be an Ayatollah or some nefarious dictator, they get a free pass to do to post hateful, violence inciting things on Facebook. They get a hall pass. So that in and of itself is crazy.
And then that whole idea of Facebook, which they own Instagram, right? And which is one of the things that you talked about with the self-image with the teens. I mean, what teenage girl does not have a problem with her self-image? Teenage boy as well. I mean, and the whistleblower, Frances Haugen, I mean, you got to give her some credit, don't you? I mean, for her to stand up against this $2 billion company, and she's 37 years old. I don't know if you probably did because you're probably that type of guy. But I mean, I went into her background and say, like, who exactly is she? I mean, she has a computer engineering degree and she went to Harvard, which was paid for by Google. She doesn't really land anywhere long at any type of company in Silicon Valley. I think, she went to Yelp and Pinterest and she was there like a year and a half, 2 years, maybe tops at Google. But yet, she started seeing this change, seeing this documents, and then she pulled all these documents, confidential, proprietary. I'm sure they were all stamped that way, but she had access to them. And then she turns them over to the SEC and government and who knows what else. But, so she now goes in front of Congress and she takes all this to Washington. And I think it was the first time that I actually saw somebody in Washington understand what the hell she was talking about. I mean, I'm sure you remember when Zuckerberg went there the first time. I mean, it was like, they were confusing him with Twitter, right? Excuse me, that was not me. But my point being that, she's now going to be drugged through the courts herself, right? I mean, she's going to get sued 8 ways from Sunday from Facebook. But was there anything?
That would be very bad publicity for them, wouldn't it?
Yes, exactly. What was something that Frances talked about that shocked you?
Well, also, Frances, first of all, nothing that Frances said shocked me because I've been writing about Facebook for years. Messenger for Kids, talking about, this targeting of children. She reveals that, all this stuff about their efforts to target children. And I wrote about this in 2016 in Europe. I said, hey, Messenger for Kids is a terrible idea. They're slipping this under the rug. This whole uproar about Instagram for Kids recently. The fact is that Facebook Messenger for Kids is already live. 6 to 12-year-olds, they're onboarding on their platform. This is sort of cradle to grave marketing. They're getting all this data. Sure, they're saying they're not using it, but Facebook lies about everything that they do and don't do, and then they pretend to endorse and support regulations, and then they violate the regulations and pay the fines as a cost of doing business.
Exactly. The fine is just a cost of doing business. And, during the whole whistleblower trials that were going on in Washington, I mean, Zuckerberg's sailing in Kauai.
Yeah,
it's like
right.
totally out of touch. Hey, listen, we have to say a quick thank you to our partners in this podcast because they make it possible. So I want you to stay right where you are. We're in a great conversation with Mark Weinstein, and he is the founder of an ad-free social network with data privacy, no content amplification. It's called MeWe. We're going to get into that in just a few moments more because I really want to know, wow, I mean, talk about taking on Goliath, but we're going to talk more about that, so stay right where you are. Hey, welcome back to Kim Komando Explains. We're talking about Facebook. Is it a monopoly? Is it not a monopoly? How much control do they have over us? And Mark, we were just talking about Instagram for kids and Messenger for kids. But, it also goes back to parents, right? I mean, why aren't parents watching? I've always said, I've been doing this show for over 20 years. And quite frankly, the only time that I really hear, well, I shouldn't say only, but I'd say 90% of the time when I hear from a parent It's because they weren't watching the kid, and now they want to know like how they can figure out what Johnny's doing because Johnny has become a recluse, or Janie's not talking to them anymore, or they're both hanging out on Xbox or whatever it is. And so it's almost like, like the prevention isn't there until they catch their kid doing something.
It was easier 5 to 10 years ago to monitor what our kids were doing. It's harder today. By the way, just as a side note, we don't let anybody. We ask 16 or over is what we ask. People when they register. Are you 16 or over? We're not interested. I think it's wrong. Anybody who has kids, you understand how destructive social media is, and how time consuming it is, and how addictive it is, and that's on purpose. So, here's the challenge for parents today. Kids, if you don't give them the phone, then you can't reach them. If you could get them a flip phone, but then their friends have phones. Their friends are showing them all this stuff on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. So the tactic that we all have to take today is conversation. Education is to really see it with our children instead of trying to avoid it. Trying to avoid it is just not going to work because they're going to see it outside them. So we're better off seeing it with our kids and then talking to them about it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's the way to approach it today. And also still do your best to keep kids, limit their time, limit their phones. Don't give them phones too early. Don't give them iPads too early. Don't give them access too early. But be in a dialogue about real life, because the best thing we can do with our kids is talk to them about real life, about participating in real life. Even the point, Kim, I'm a social media guy. My kids have to look out the window when we're in the car. We talk about what we see. I don't, in a restaurant, there's no such thing as a phone on the table, not for mommy, daddy, or the kids. We just have to, we've got to bite the bullet and be good parents that way to teach our kids to live in the real world. And then, teach them that this body image stuff is just a bunch of BS and it's not real, and that, everybody has different figures and that you look great, and give our kids confidence to be who they are, not to be some fake facade, which, by the way, you'll hear me say sometimes, Facebook is for the facade of your life and MeWe is for your real life, the authenticity. It's such a clear differentiation.
Well, because on social media, people are always portraying this great, happy existence that they might have. Everything's all wonderful in my life. And the dialogue is super important. I mean, being able to just talk to your kids about what's going on at each individual life stage. I mean, I remember when Ian was probably 12. That's my son's name. Ian was 12 or 13, and I said, I dare you to take 24 hours and not go on TikTok or Snap or whatever it may be. And he's like, I don't need to do that. And so he actually did it himself. And he came back to me afterwards and says, wow, that was really great. I actually deleted Snap off my phone. I'm like, yes. Okay. That was like a great, we've had bad parenting moments, like the time, Mark, when I let him drive, I don't know, I think it was like 200 miles per hour on the Autobahn in Germany. That was a bad parenting moment. But this one was, this particular time, I was like, yeah, this is something really good. But let's switch gears for just a second. What has given you the gumption? I mean, and what have you done? What did you do before MeWe that you thought like, wow, I can beat Facebook at their own game, but I'm going to do it better and I'm going to protect the consumer. What's your background?
So in the late 90s, thank you for asking, because this is not my first social network rodeo, so to speak. In the late 90s, I was there when social networking was invented. There was a whole group of us building different companies. I built a company that had divisions called superfamily.com and superfriends.com, launched in 1998, 3 years in a row, PC Magazine, top 100 sites. I understand social networking from the beginning, from how it was intended. And it was intended to connect us with our family and friends and like-minded interests around the world, because our lives had become global. It wasn't invented so that we could become data points and targeted and manipulated and sold down the river. So fast forward, that company was successful. I sold that company in the early 2000s. Fast forward to 2010, and Mark Zuckerberg does an interview I think it was The Guardian again, and he says to the reporter, a live interview, he says, privacy is a social norm of the past. And my jaw dropped. I was like, are you kidding me, man? You run a social network. You just decided for the world that privacy is dead? That's not, you can't do that. That's absurd.
I think he was 12 then, Mark. I'm not sure. Okay.
But he was serious. And I was like, I told my friends, I said, I'm starting another company. I'm going to fix this. And so we ran a beta project. I relocated to Silicon Valley, sold my houses, liquidated my retirement account, didn't take a salary for years, started hiring engineers, raising money from private investors. And in 2016, we announced MeWe at South by Southwest, and we won a nice award as Startup of the Year finalist for Innovative World Technology. And then we just kept on engineering. Today, we have almost 20 million registered users, and we haven't spent a penny on marketing. So this is all organic growth without help from influencers, without help from institutional capital. And now we're really ready to catapult. And, it has been challenging because Facebook mutes all the conversations about MeWe. We've done this we've translated to 20 languages. We've got all the features people love and none of the BS. And Kim, we have a privacy bill of rights for our members. And we have a poison pill in our privacy policy, so we can't just go willy-nilly and change it. The idea is very simple. Our members are customers to serve and delight, not data to target and sell down the river.
So just from a business perspective, how much money have you raised?
We've raised about $24 million over the years from high net worth investors.
And then from the 24 million, are you still raising money?
We are actually looking right now to raise like double the amount that we've raised, to do a significant strategic raise with good strategic partners. And also, Kim, our business model works. We have revenue. So picture this. In 2019, we did about $137,000 in revenue. In 2020, we did about $1.1 million in revenue. In 2021, we'll do somewhere between $5 and $8 million in revenue. Our revenue model works. About 4% of our members buy extras. It's a freemium model. MeWe is free. It's free forever. And everything people love is free. Disappearing content, stories, a great custom camera, private groups, pages, open groups, private news feeds for your contacts, all the great stuff that people love. And then we have a premium membership that adds a little bit more, live voice and live video, our custom emoji store, all kinds of fun stuff. And it's $5 a month. And about 4% of our members opt in to premium, and that pays the bills. And this is just the beginning because, Kim, as you know, when you serve and delight your customers, they're happy to buy things with you,
and
because
they're
them.
And if they trust you. I mean, that's right. Really important thing. I mean, one of the I think the backbones of the Komando brand, or whatever you want to call it, is that trust. And people know that when whatever they see, they read, they interact with, is that it's going to be good and it's going to be forthright. What do you project your revenues to be for 2022?
Well, I think we'll jump into the $20 to $25 million range in 2022 as we grow, as we fund and can now, here's how I like to look at it. Maybe 1% to 2% of social media users worldwide have ever heard of MeWe, and we've already gotten to 20 million. What happens when 50 to 100% of social media users worldwide know about MeWe? So then our membership will catapult because people do love us. If you look at the reviews, and we've never paid for a review, we've got 500,000 reviews in iTunes and the Play Store. We've got a 4.4 rating out of 5. Facebook has a 2.2 rating. So people, when they discover MeWe, they love it. So we do expect that we will grow and catapult. And like I said, now's the time that we want to fund so we can spread the word worldwide. We're translating into 20 languages, by the way, and 50% of our traffic is already international.
I love your story. I really do. Because, everybody loves the underdog, right? And when we come right back, we're going to talk more about the underdog. I want to talk more about how Facebook is going to translate into what do they call them? This metaverse company as they buy VR and Oculus Rift, and where they're saying that now we're going to be living in this VR world, in Facebook's world. So you want to stay right where you are. We have that and a whole bunch more that you're not going to want to miss. Hey, welcome back to Kim Komando Explains. We are having this wonderful conversation with Mark Weinstein. And Mark, you are the underdog. I mean, you are taking on Facebook. And I love this because way back when, in the 90s, you mentioned the 90s. In the 90s, I had this idea for a tech radio show. And let me tell you, Mark, I called everybody, right? And I don't know if you remember, but there was an infomercial called Computer Tutor. And I sold a lot of videotapes on late night television. And I also started the computer section on AOL and on America Online. And I wanted to do national radio. And so I called up CBS. And the guy at CBS, who I still know, his name's Frank, but I'm not going to give his last name. He told me that a show about technology, would never work because the internet was only going to be a fad like the pet rock. Then the guy at ABC told me that a show would never work about technology because the only people that would listen to it would be freaks and geeks, okay, which only propelled me further to say, okay, I'm going to prove you guys wrong, and here we are, with my company. I mean, we have no debt, we have no investors, and things are totally on the upswing despite the pandemic and all the challenges that have come with radio and podcasting and everything else along the way. Now, is there any point in your life, Mark, or over like the past couple of weeks where you sit there and you go, wow, this is really hard, but I know I can do it?
It's been like that for, several years, Kim, because listen, when you are, the proverbial David in an industry where the Goliath is taking down all the competition, taking them out, as the FTC complaint against Facebook filed in August with the courts, the antitrust complaint, the FTC's updated complaint, it references many companies that are out of business or were acquired, and only two that are alive, Snap and MeWe. So, this has been a huge challenge, but every morning I've always woken up and said, we're right. First of all, we're right. There's a problem that must be fixed. I mean, so many of us live in America. We're raised with the ideals of this incredible democracy that we have. And remember, the backbone of democracy is the principle of civil discourse, the right to disagree, but also the ability to start companies and give it your best. So, when I started MeWe, I knew it was going to be uphill. In 2012, I said on Fox News, they interviewed me the day before Facebook went public. I was the guy they picked who would say something not nice about Facebook. And I said very simply, they've got privacy wrong. It's going to come back. So, and every day when I wake up, I know that we're right about what we're doing. And yes, it's hard. And yes, it's been hard to raise money from the institutional venture capitalists because Facebook is so entrenched. Nobody believes that Facebook can, someone can compete with them. And here we are, 20 million strong. We're competing with them, doing the right thing, doing well by doing good. And we're advised, Kim, by the inventor of the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. It was not Al Gore. It's Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And we're advised by the founder of this worldwide movement called Conscious Capitalism, Raj Sisodia, who also coached companies like Southwest Airlines and Whole Foods and the Container Store. And Raj tells me all the time, Mark, companies that do the right thing are always going to do well. Stay with it.
And they will. And like one of my pet peeves about Facebook, and I probably should have said this before, I am not a fan of Facebook. I think it is a diabolical organization. I think, this Sandberg gal who says she's the adult in the room, she's not the adult in the room. She's just there for the profits like everybody else. But the thing that has really irked me, and this is from my perspective, Mark, as a member of the media, is that for years, I'm sure you saw like, join us on Facebook, on your local news or your radio or whatever it was. Like here, even small businesses come to us on Facebook. And so Facebook fostered and had all these people like send them their basically build their client base, right? And had their family and friends and their customers. And then all of a sudden, Facebook switched gears on everybody. And I heard from so many small business owners who went under when Facebook said, oh, you want to put that post up? Well, if you want to do that post, you're going to have to boost the post, right? So now these small businesses that were depending upon Facebook for customers, they just were cut off at the knees. And why? For profits. And they continually do this. But one of the things that I have found is that people don't want to leave Facebook. I mean, it's hard for them to leave because they have their families and friends and their circles and their Facebook marketplace and, the places that they're buying and selling. And it just becomes very, very, very difficult. I personally have stepped off of Facebook several times. I have to have it for a show presence, and it's done by a member of staff. I'm not on it. But in order to stay in the public eye, I have to be there. But what are the biggest obstacles for that you hear for when you're trying to get somebody away from Facebook? It's almost like, it's like a drug addiction, it seems.
It is actually a drug addiction. And Frances Haugen talked about that and talked about how they are purposely trying to make Facebook more addictive than cigarettes. What a terrible approach to a business, right? In terms of causing harm to people. There's something called the network effect, which is what you're referencing, which is that, so many people have so much going on, and Facebook purposely has also bought their loyalty, by paying them for content or, this latest initiative where they have $100 million to pay for, small and minority-owned businesses. They're actually buying their receivables and paying them and paying off their receivables to buy a market segment. And that's monopolistic behavior, and it's wrong because these are people that are suffering and they need the money. So Facebook just buys their loyalty by paying off their receivables and taking over. So for MeWe, the good news is that today people use 4 or 5 different social networks. So what we see is people come over to MeWe for authentic conversations, for private conversations. Remember, you don't want your future husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, your future employers, your future schools, any people, any significant moments in your life or changes you're going to make in your life. You don't want them to be able to research your life, which they can do very easily on Facebook. So people are coming to MeWe for their real life, authentic conversations. Also, their groups are on MeWe. We have an open platform inside MeWe, but Google doesn't find anything that's on MeWe. So, what's on MeWe stays on MeWe. And as we said, you can't boost or amplify. Nobody can target or manipulate you. You choose who your contacts are, the groups you're part of, the pages you follow, and your news feed is timeline ordered. And, there are actually some studies that show that people stay longer per visit on MeWe than on Facebook. So this idea that the algorithm keeps you longer is not true. But the algorithm does create more insightful, outrageous content that grips you and then pushes you into making some kind of a purchase decision or a click. So
how do you prevent hate speech? How do you prevent fake news from spreading?
Well, I love that, because when you change the business model, which we've done, so that nobody can amplify or boost anything on our platform, then you have to pick to follow it for starters. So your newsfeed is only what you choose. Nobody is going to amplify or boost on our platform. Even you as a member can't amplify or boost on our platform. And we have a very strict terms. So, I've talked a lot about this, particularly this year with the media. MeWe has a great trust and safety team. We have a very strict terms. If you look at our terms of service, the first thing is the punch list of what you cannot do on MeWe. You can't incite violence. You can't post hate. You can't dox, bully. You can't, violate copyright laws. You can't break the law. We're not interested. We're for the good guys. But if you have an opinion that's different from mine on any particular topic, as long as you follow our rules, it's none of my business. So, MeWe doesn't, we have no double standard. There's no elites that get special treatment. Everybody gets the same. And besides our trust and safety team, there is, report and block on every post, on every profile, on every group, on every page. So our members participate every day in letting us know if they see something that they think violates the community rules. And we're up to date. We investigate every day. We make decisions about, whether something is appropriate or not. Again, no double standards and very clear rules of engagement, civil discourse. We're not going to censor you because you think an aspirin is good for your heart and the other guy thinks an aspirin is bad for your heart. That's none of our business.
It's fascinating, Mark, and congratulations on what you've built so far. I'm really excited for your future. I mean, 2 years ago, what'd you say? 2 years ago, you had what'd you say? 5 million and no revenue, 5 million folks
right.
and no revenue.
Right.
And, if you look at next year, I think the stars are aligned. And I think your hard work over the last, more than 20 years. I mean, because you've been in the tech industry, obviously you're no overnight success. I think it's going to be really wonderful to see, and I think the American public will embrace it, especially as they get tired of being manipulated and knowing that they're being manipulated, but no real safe haven to go afterwards. And people don't like change generally, right? I mean, people don't want to change. But this is a change that I think is forthcoming. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story with us, and thanks for spending some time with me.
Thank you, Kim. It's a pleasure. The world is changing, and Facebook is acting like a 100-year-old company, bullying and sort of myopic. And the world is going to change right around them. So,
I hope it does.
Is here. And, we're ready to, do things the right way. We like to say MeWe is social done right.
Mark Weinstein was there when social networking was invented. When Mark Zuckerberg said privacy is a thing of the past, he says his jaw dropped. Although Zuckerberg doesn't value privacy, I do, and you should too. Before you leave me on this podcast, let me share a few tips. First, when you're setting up your social media accounts, spend some time setting up strong privacy security protections. You want strong passwords, okay? And never reuse your passwords across different sites. I know it's easier, but it's a privacy nightmare. Secondly, most social media profiles are public by default, so I want you to change it. Make it so that only your friends can see your profile. You don't want criminals and scammers or anybody else just seeing your photos or your location. That just helps them create scams and target you. Third, treat all your data like it's public. Don't reveal personal information over messenger apps. Never use your real phone number, okay, or your email address to sign up for apps, games, and quizzes. You can use Google Voice to create a second phone number, which will definitely cut down on the number of robocalls and other scam calls. These are just a few tips off the top of my head. For more specific advice, and if you need the step-by-step guides for staying safe, just head over to the website. That's Komando.com, with a K, of course. And a quick thank you and shout out goes to Mark Weinstein for spending some time and sharing his knowledge with us here on Kim Komando Explains. And do me a huge favor, wherever you get your podcast, be sure that you rate, review, you subscribe, you follow, because that's how more people find out about us. And if you're looking for the Kim Komando Show podcast, you can subscribe to that on Apple, on Android, and also you can always find it over at Komando.com, where you actually get a 30-day free trial, but you have to go to GetKim.com. Once again, that address to get a free month of the Kim Komando Show as a podcast and as a webcast, and to use the message boards and a whole bunch of more fun stuff. That address is getkim.com. And thanks for listening.
Are you struggling to lose weight and keep it off? Tired of wasting time and money on starvation diets that lead to more frustration and stress? If there was a weight loss solution that could actually work for you, would you try it? Then head to Golo.com.
I'm Steve. I lost 138 pounds in 9 months on Golo.
I'm Amber. I've lost 128 pounds with Golo Taking Release.
If you're ready to take back control of your life, head to Golo.com now and see how Golo can work for you. That's Golo.com.
My sleep is way better. My inflammation has gone way down. Golo saved my life. I was way overweight. That's what sent me down the path. I wanted to make sure and live for my kid.
I have literally tried everything. I was on the verge of getting gastric bypass surgery, and I saw the Golo commercial, and it was the last thing I tried because it worked.
Join over 2 million people who have found a better way to lose weight with Golo. Your healthier and happier life begins at Golo.com. That's GOLO.com. Again, GOLO.com.
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Like that, let's put it online and see what happens stage.
And the site is live.
That we opened a store and need a fast checkout stage.
Thanks. You're all set.
That count it up and ship it around the globe stage.
This one's going to Thailand.
And that, wait, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Whatever your stage, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen.